if my cousin's a broker, should I use him to sell my home?
Yeah. The age-old question, right? And you could pretty much insert cousin with anyone, right?
Yeah,
Cousin,
it could be your best
uncle,
friend,
best friend,
yep.
your whoever, right?
And you know, I think it's a little weird, but yeah, I think we need to get into it, and you know, we're gonna talk about family and friends today.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we get that a lot. Like we meet a lot of people that might be first-time home buyers or, you know, an online lead that comes in and they meet us, and, you know, it's a common objection that like, hey, you know, my cousin just got licensed and I'm going to use him because, you know, I owe it to him to give him the commission, to give him the shot. We see it a lot. And I think, you know.
So you're telling me I got a $500,000 condo, and since my cousin's new in the business, I should give him the money?
Absolutely not. Should give me the money. No. But no, and what I tell clients is like, listen, I know you think you owe it to your cousin, but you don't. You don't owe it to your cousin. You don't owe it to me. You owe it to yourself to get the best service possible. And if you think that that's going to come from your cousin that just got licensed, maybe not, but most likely not, right? They don't have the experience. They don't have the market knowledge. They haven't seen the different circumstances that can arise throughout a sale. So it depends who the cousin is, long story short, but I think you should use somebody that has a track record, somebody that knows what they're doing, that has some expertise, that is willing to give you the time and service that you deserve as somebody that's selling their home or buying their first home. Long story short, it depends who your cousin is. But if they're brand new, I would say you might want to interview somebody else.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I think it's a loaded topic, and I've learned to love this topic. And I think there's pros and cons. Like, right? So let's talk about some pros. Say you're my cousin, right? So one is we have a relationship. Say we grew up together. At least I know I'm going to trust you more because you're likely going to have my back, right? Mm-hmm. I'm assuming we're family. We're somewhat close. So you're going to look out for me better than somebody else, right?
Maybe.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Shit. I don't want to know what's going on in Fields' family, man. So
Sure.
So let's assume they're going to, you know, it'll be easier to trust. I think that's one pro. I think one con is you may be a little more relaxed and maybe not as professional. You may feel not as hyper responsive. You know, this industry, we tend to be clear communicators, almost over communicators. So there could be some lackadaisicalness in boundaries, or you might not feel as comfortable bringing your A game because I may experience it different, or vice versa. Yeah. I think there's some of that. But I do think what's important is having an understanding of what's a good criteria for a good broker. Totally. And I do think it's important, and this is where I think it all gets lost for people, is people don't know how to have exactly what we're doing now, having that awkward conversation. One is interview him. He's a cousin, but if he's new, or if he's not new, and if you don't see him enough, or you don't know enough about what he does, I don't know what all my family members do and in detail and how talented they are in that industry that they're in. Like, I think it's important to have that conversation, almost like an informational interview or a true interview, and have a list of questions. So, if I'm the broker and I'm selling, what do you want to ask me? What are the questions that you should be asking your family member or your best friend, right? Or your friend that you know at the gym who talks to you about real estate all the time? What should you be asking them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And I think the first thing that a buyer or seller should look for from a broker, it's not necessarily a question, but that broker should be sitting you down and putting you through a consultation. They should be taking you through exactly what their process looks like, exactly what they're doing along the way. If it's a listing, how are they going to market the property? You know, what vendors do they have in case you need work around the house? Do they plan on staging? Really understanding the process of selling the home and what makes them different from Joe Schmo Realtor down the street. I also think it's really important to know what they've done in the past, right? Like, how many properties have you sold? Have you sold a property like mine? Do you know my neighborhood? You know, they should come prepared with market stats and data and comparables, and they should be able to tell you exactly what the property's worth. So yeah, I think to start, those would be big things that I would look for.
So you've talked about how we're going to market the property, right? Mm-hmm. What does BLT offer? MBG offer?
In terms of marketing?
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much you know.
Ass-kicking social media content. So if they don't have good social media presence, so I think you guys more so than me, like I can hit in a month, if I'm running ads targeting people who have searches in Zillow and Instagram, I could run an ad for a property and hit within a month 10 to 12,000 people. And that's way better than the MLS. Everybody can go on Zillow and look if they're really looking, but running ads, so when you go on Instagram, all of a sudden, boom, our listing pops up in your face, right? That's what you want. So one is marketing that both teams do really, really well.
Yeah.
You talked about knowing the market, right? That's important.
Yeah.
You talked about being able to communicate. You talked about one that I really love is the system, right?
Yeah.
If that agent has a system on how they start the process with you, market the process with you, go under contract, the system throughout all of that, which I think all of us have, you know, that's a broker who's truly invested, knows the industry, because the only way you can put systems in place is you got to know the industry and how to do the sale.
Totally.
I think you talked about having good resources. I think in the other part when we were talking earlier is being able to problem solve, right? Like the listing that I use that's been a nightmare, I am continuously problem solving and pivoting, trying to guide my client, but also being able to emotionally understand where the tenant is or where that buyer is, where your seller's at, because ultimately we are trying to manage people, their emotions, and the deal in itself.
Totally.
What else are we missing on how to manage, on how to interview someone if they're a qualified broker to sell your home?
Yeah, I mean, I think we hit the major ones. I think it's process driven, it's marketing driven, it's communication. And then I think kind of the X factor, right? If all other things are created equal and you have two phenomenal brokers and you have to pick one, it's going to come down to who you have the best rapport with at the end of the day, right? You got to like them. Like, we're going to go through this process. It could be months that we're working together and we're talking every day, and could be working through some difficult issues. If you hate having to talk to me, it's going to be miserable for both of us. Yeah. So I think
absolutely
all else the same, which it never really is, but hypothetically, pick the one that you kind of have the best rapport with and that you like being around.
So when your cousin doesn't use you, what's it like?
It's brutal. You know, every time that it doesn't happen for a while, I'm like, you know, I've come to terms with it, right? Like, I'm doing a good amount of business. It's okay. I understand. And then one of my like buddies or someone I know, they go and use somebody else, and man, it's the dagger to the heart over and over.
How do you find out?
You know, it depends.
We always find out.
We always find out.
We always do. What I think, if I can give anybody, my friends, my family, anybody out there, is just take a moment to talk to us and tell us what's going on. And you're like, hey, this is my best friend. He's been doing it for years, blah, blah, blah. Because I find like then it's this big elephant that gets in the way in your relationship. Yeah. And I think that goes a long way. I had one friend not use me, and I found out at a party it was awkward. It was awkward for him, awkward for his wife, awkward for me. I understand it. Then he comes out and gives me a call. Meanwhile, we talked about real estate on and off. He calls me up and he wants to go out to dinner. I was like, but he's just like, hey, man, I owe you an apology. I used this person. It wasn't the best experience. I actually, in hindsight, wish I used you. But I felt like I was going to be a bother to you and drag you around all these places all the time. And I wasn't ready to buy, and I didn't know when to buy, and I was looking for a year. And I'm just like, it's cool. We can just talk about it. You want to use somebody else? that's okay.
Yeah.
It's better if we're friends, we can have the conversation and work
Yes.
through it. If we're cousins, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess in this, I just want to give people a few things. One is it's okay to talk about it. And two, be sure you interview whoever you're going to use.
Yeah, totally. And that's one of like the first things that I ask. Like if a buddy comes to me and he's like, hey man, you know, we have to use this other broker. We have this relationship with them and, you know, I wish I could use you, but I'm bummed out. I totally get it. And like, I'm not going to be offended. And I appreciate that person coming to me and talking to me. Like you said, it's like, listen, I get it. You can't win them all. But at the end of the day, I say, if you're not going to use me, make sure that you're using a pro, right? Because there's so many agents in this business that are part-time, that don't take it seriously, that do a 2-week course and they get a license and they're a broker, right? There's a wide range of professionalism. So I say, if you're not going to use me, just tell me who you're going to use and let me look them up. And I'll tell you honestly, hey, this person's a pro. If you're not with me, at least you're in good hands, right? Because if they go and they get a poor experience and now that person, I mean, it's not about the money, but at the end of the day, that person's going to make a commission off my buddy and my buddy's going to get a poor experience. And it's like, I would have done it for free just to make them get them the best result. But I won't do it for free. You have to pay me.
Well, I like what you're talking about right now. And probably out of this is the moment where it's starting to feel like the cameras are gone, the mics are gone. And what you're talking about and what I really try to drive myself is like, you really care.
Totally.
You really care. So whether it's not just your salesperson, you really care about that friend, that person, and getting right home, because we get it. We spend all our savings on our home. We get you're doing it too. And we really want to help you. So if you're not using us, yeah, because all of this is really about building relationships and connecting with people and helping people. And we get a nice opportunity to make a good living out of it. It's a lot of fun, but ultimately you want what's best for your friend. And so do I. And so that's where it's just like, just let us know. Just talk about it. Because if you're not using us, we just want to make sure you're hooked up, because not everyone's going to use us.
Yeah.
Just because you're friends with us doesn't mean you have to use us.
Yeah.
But we still want to be friends.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I get it. There's a lot of dynamics at play, right? You might not want your friend knowing your financial situation, or you might not want to mix. I mean, I've heard this before. Yeah, I don't want to mix business and pleasure, which, call it what you want. But,
He's still a little jaded.
But I get it. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you're not going to use me, use somebody good, but you should use me.
I think the thing to take is Fields cares, and so do I. Thanks for listening.